So you want to learn iOS development. Watch this video until the end to learn what you need to know in order to get started. I have identified 5 components that will make you an iOS software engineer. First off, I want to say that anybody can learn iOS development. You don't need a computer science degree or a fancy certificate from a boot camp. All you really need is a Mac laptop or computer and the willingness to learn all of these 5 different components that I have identified for you. The first component being Xcode. Download and master Xcode. Xcode is the IDE, or the Integrated Development Environment, the tool which you will use to create apps. This is provided by Apple. It is available for download from the Mac App Store, which I will link below in the description, and I'll also post a video on how to get started with Xcode. It has a code editor, project organizer, compiler, debugger, etc. This is where you will build and write the code for your iOS apps. And so even if you don't have an iOS device, that's okay. You can get started with Xcode and build your apps on a simulator. Let me know if you'd like to see a detailed video about this. The next component that I have identified is the Swift programming language. iOS, macOS, tvOS, and watchOS are all apps that are written in either Swift programming language or Objective-C programming language. These are the 2 languages that you can pick to write your iOS apps in. Objective-C is older. It's a little bit outdated. You will need to know a few more advanced programming concepts in order to write your code purely in Objective-C. Swift, on the other hand, is fun, it's powerful, it's much easier to learn than Objective-C. I would recommend that you focus your energy here in learning the syntax around Swift. This will make your life a lot easier. Larger companies who have written their code in Objective-C are currently trying to port everything over to Swift. All new development for companies that already have apps released in the App Store are written in Swift, so really focus your time and energy on Swift. The third component is the user interface, or UI. UI is the interface that you will see when you interact with an app. So this includes the views, buttons, labels, text, images, the navigation controllers, etc. that you will interact with as a user on your app. The traditional way of creating UI is through a view controller in iOS development. However, just last year at WWDC, Apple introduced Swift UI, which uses declarative syntax and a different kind of view hierarchy. So these are the 2 options. If you're learning iOS development in order to go into industry, I would recommend that you learn the traditional way of creating UI, because a lot of these larger FANG companies have not adopted Swift UI yet. It has only been 1 year since Apple announced it. They're still trying to iron out all of the kinks, the bugs that are in Swift UI. Also, if all of these companies have large code bases in which they have a combination of Objective-C and Swift, so porting everything over to Swift UI is just not feasible in this short amount of time. So I would recommend learning how to use a view controller and how to create UI that way. Additionally, creating UI, you can use a storyboard or you can programmatically create all of your views. I would recommend learning how to do both ways, perhaps starting out with the storyboard because it's a little bit easier. Let me know if you'd like to see a video on this. The fourth component includes coding logic. Logic governs what happens in your app. It is a crucial component for any application, any program that you write. Learning the basics and fundamentals of this is really important. using statements such as like if, then, if else, you switch statements, optionals, loops. A great place to practice coding logic, also referred to as business logic, is in the Xcode playground. I have a video on how to get started with Xcode playground. I will link it in the corner above. And then the final component is app architecture. So this one might be a little bit tricky for beginners, but I have no doubt that you will be able to learn this. This is a foundation for your application. It's how you structure your code and how you separate out different components, such as the view, what is responsible for your app's UI, the controller, which includes the business logic, the model, which stores your data, updates every time a user takes an action, etc. So I have listed out 4 popular app architectures. The first one being MVC, which stands for Model View Controller. We also have MVVM, which is Model View View Model. We have Viper, we have Uber Ribs, which is relatively new. Uber came up with their own app architecture, which they use for their apps. It includes a router, an interactor, a builder, etc. Let me know if you'd like to see a video on this. I'm planning on creating one to help everybody out with this component. I have listed out an image of MVC. So this is a very simple model view controller. It shows you that if you have a view and the user interacts with the view, then this alerts the controller. The controller will then update the model, and then the model will supply its updated version back to the controller, which will update the view. So this is just one option for an app architecture, but it's really crucial in order for your app to be sustained and maintained in the long term, to write efficient and well-written code. So getting familiar with an app architecture is highly important. With that said, I know I provided a lot of information on all of these different components. Practice really makes perfect. So take out some time every day and practice your iOS development. This will really make you a good iOS engineer. Come back to my channel. I post videos regularly. Let me know if they're helpful, if there's a specific topic that you would like me to cover. Secondly, stay consistent. I know this is challenging if you're first learning. You're just getting into the world of iOS development. Apple has a lot of rules. Just really staying consistent and practicing every day will really help you on your journey. Finally, you're not alone. There's many iOS developer communities. We have groups on LinkedIn. Obviously, Stack Overflow is a great resource. YouTube is a great resource. My channel, please subscribe if you'd like to see more videos on any of these components. I've really listed out these different topics as components, not steps, for how to become an iOS engineer, because they really you have to learn them simultaneously, and you can't just learn Xcode without learning Swift. They kind of go hand in hand, and as you progress in one, you will progress in the other one. I hope this video was helpful, and I'm so excited about your journey and the amazing apps that you will create. Thanks.